Welcome to Greek Like Me, Episode 2, Look Greek. I'm your host, Pamela Diodes Wood. People make judgments all the time about culture, accents, and appearances, and we naturally refer to images or references we've learned to associate with a culture. Southerners are bigots, Italians are tough guys, Asians are bad drivers, Greeks are loud. Where do we get the idea that one size fits all in the culture department? If you haven't grown up around any of these cultures, TV or movies may be your only point of reference. When I was growing up, the Greek characters I saw on TV or in the movies were few and far between. They were all diner owners or guys who threw plates and yelled, "Oppa!" For the most part, those continue to be the kind of Greek characters I see on TV or in the movies. That stuff is definitely part of my culture, like tea drinking and national health care is to the British. But is that all there is? This week's podcast touches on my experiences being introduced as Greek to non-Greeks. But don't feel bad if you've committed a faux pas. I'll be following up on what Greeks say to a Greek that doesn't look Greek. Now that's offensive. For most people, the only Greek contact they have is their waiter at the local diner. And people get excited about making that real first contact. That movie that hit so big a few years back shows us some strange responses when people learn that I'm Greek. Most common response: I love baklava. I'm never sure how to respond to this one. Thank you? Like, I'm not personally responsible for baklava. I understand wanting to find a common ground, make a connection, and I appreciate that. But if you were visiting another culture as an American, would you want to be greeted with, I love hot dogs, or I love McDonald's? Not to say I never want to talk Greek food, bring it on. But there's got to be a better way to start a conversation. Second most common response: do you throw plates? Dang those movies. My usual answer is only when I'm really pissed off, but that dodges the issue. Plate throwing is associated with Greeks like guns are associated with Americans. When I visited a friend in Japan, one of her pals asked me if I was afraid to leave the house because of all the gunfire. This was before the insane level of random violence we've experienced in the last few years. I might not be so incredulous hearing this question today, but at the time it was bizarre. So the plate throwing question as an icebreaker, maybe not the best choice. That said, I've actually been to 2 Greek social affairs where there was plate throwing. Only 2. One of them was a baptism party. Origins of the custom are attributed to ancient ideas about scaring off evil spirits from happy events, or rowdy cafe crowds showing their appreciation for the performers. These days in Greece, plates are handed out to tourists in some spots because it's good for business, and those plates will cost you. Third most common response: I've had people tell me their cousin Mary had a Greek friend in college who came from Detroit. Her name is Stacy Durdalakis. Do you know her? I used to garden with a woman named Betty Bell. Do you know her? I don't even know all the Greeks in New Jersey. I'm not going to know every Greek in the continental United States. Although, yes, we do know lots of other Greeks because we are a bit cliquish. But come on. For the past several years, people have said to me, I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, a.k.a. that movie. We do too, because it's a pretty accurate account of what it's like to be Greek. Really, it is. It's actually not a bad way to start a conversation with a Greek because everybody relates to the movie. I've had people tell me it could be My Big Fat Jewish Wedding or My Big Fat Italian Wedding. Yet, would you want somebody to say, you're Italian, I love The Sopranos, or I loved Yentl, Mambo Kings, or Sweet Home Alabama? But honestly, I think citing the movies and icebreakers fine. Who doesn't love Nir Vardalos? Bottom line, engaging others trying to learn about their culture is a good thing. Assuming everyone from that culture is throwing things or driving like lunatics, not so much. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into how stealth Greeks, like me, get treated by other Greeks. My definition of stealth Greek is someone you wouldn't necessarily know to be Greek at first sight. Other Greeks usually know who's who, but in my case, I'm a true ringer. I don't look Greek. As I mentioned in my last podcast, my mother was Greek, my dad was an American of Swedish and Scottish descent. I have my mother's eyes, nose, and mouth. I even inherited her dark curly hair, but my jawline is all wrong. I am very white. And my teeth are big, all the better for the Northern Europeans in the gene pool to take a bite out of a mastodon, while the Mediterranean side was noshing on figs and olives. So I get the suspicious, you don't look Greek. When I protest, I can tell I am not believed, until I go into the whole story of my origins. Then they're placated because a drop of Greek blood is all you need to make a claim in the heritage, but sometimes they still look suspicious. Over time, on hearing the "you don't look Greek" response, my first thought has become, why would I lie? In case you think I'm exaggerating about the hoops I have to jump through half the time to prove my Greekness to another Greek, I'll give you an example. I used to work at the Bloomfield Public Library in lovely Bloomfield, New Jersey. One night, I'm working the front desk, the 1 to 9 shift, and I'm tired. Long lines, crazy patrons, the computers are acting up. You get what I mean. So a guy comes up with his 2 daughters to get library cards. He's obviously American-born, but I see by his ID that he's Greek. I don't do the usual thing we all do to each other. You Greek, I'm Greek too. Where are your families from? What church? Basically, because I'm tired, I'm in no mood for the "you don't look Greek" rigmarole. But as I'm typing the application, the guy notices my mataki, the little blue eyes set in gold hanging on a chain around my neck next to my cross. The mataki is an ancient Greek symbol worn or carried for protection. I'll explain these cultural items in more detail in future episodes. So, the guy says to his teenage daughter with no small level of derision, "I guess everybody's wearing the mati now." I'm ignoring him, wishing I was wearing a crew neck. So he repeats it loudly. "I guess everybody's wearing the I now." This time in English to make sure I get it. Unable to stand the implication that I am appropriating my own culture as an outsider with no clue about its history or spiritual value, I cave. I say, "I'm Greek, Mr. Whatsisopoulos." And there it is, the usual response. There's a short argument. Do I really need to explain about my non-Greek daddy? Then he pointedly says, "Tikanis," a standard Greek greeting meaning "how you doing?" I get a full step back in shock and surprise when I respond, "Καλά ευχαριστώ και εσείς," because even with the New Jersey accent, I pronounce like a Greek. I am believed. Now I can die happy. Another time, my husband and I were in a little Greek food store that used to be on Main Street in West Orange, blocks away from our church, Saints Constantine and Helen. We'd been in that store dozens of times, chatting with the owner, buying feta, olives, pastelli. This time we're in on a weekday, and a bunch of old guys had stopped by for cafes and conversation, like a little Greek tavern in urban New Jersey. These papudes surround my husband, yammering away in Greek about politics or some such. The panicked look on his face was priceless. Everybody thinks my husband is Greek. He has the look. He's actually Cuban, but he passes. They all think I'm the Xeni wife of a Greek guy named Eduardo. I try to rescue poor Eduardo and start shouting over the din at the old guys. "Δεν είναι Έλληνας." He's not Greek. They pause, look at me with old Greek guy contempt, and go back to demanding poor Ed's opinion. I repeat myself. They repeat the angry look, and I give up. Sorry, Ed. In frustration, I say to the store owner in English, "He's not Greek." The owner is surprised, even though he heard me say it twice in his native tongue. And he comments we come in a lot. "Yeah, well, I'm Greek," I say. And so it begins. We argue about my Greekness. He gives me the suspicious look. Finally, he hands me the Greek language newspaper and tells me to read the headline. Because now he will catch me out? So I read the headline. The level of his surprise is embarrassing. He praises me like I'm a 2-year-old using the potty for the first time. I get the, "Okay, you're one of us" look. I want to defect and declare my allegiance to Sweden. Jag är svensk. I'm not saying Greeks dislike non-Greeks. In fact, we're all too happy to share the culture, the food, and the history. Greeks will love you for having an interest and also think you're remarkably intelligent for showing it. Apparently, they only have a problem with a perceived outsider thinking she can get away with pretending to be one of the tribe. Unfortunately, I don't speak Greek fluently, which would be the best smackdown. The other side of the coin is when I'm berated for not claiming my Greekness fast enough. The guy at the library looked at me like I was crazy for not instantly exposing my heritage, even though he still would have argued with me. "You should be proud to be Greek." I am, but repeatedly bitten, forever shy. Eduardo and I were in a Greek restaurant one day. Unless I'm in the company of other Greeks, I tend to let myself pass as a typical American, so I get a relaxing meal without getting into the above-mentioned fracases. But I pronounced my order correctly, which most non-Greeks can't do, because we make noises with our mouths that are not par for the course in English. The waiter eyed me suspiciously. My very white skin turned bright red, and I thought, "Oh, skata." "You Greek?" said the waiter, with an accent thick as grape musk syrup. So I just go straight into the family tree explanation. "My mother is Greek, my father—" The waiter screams. I swear I'm not exaggerating. Screams. "Your mother is Greek! You are Greek! You should be proud to be Greek!" There was some additional ranting in Greek, which I thankfully did not catch as I slid under the table. This is not the first time this has happened. So what do? Wear a big badge that says, "I'm Greek," really? In Greek and in English? Mispronounce menu items in Greek restaurants so I'm not caught out? My best bet would be improving my Greek so I can tell off anybody who questions me and leave no doubt in their minds. I'm working on it. Berimeno. Meanwhile, I'm not even safe at my home church. The Greek Orthodox church I grew up in and returned to a few years after Eduardo and I were married there, now merged with the Mother Church of Newark. Recently at St. Nicholas, Constantine, and Helen, Eduardo and I met a fairly new member of our congregation. A friendly young Greek-American woman happy to be part of a community that welcomed the non-Greek spouses of its parishioners. The first thing she said to me was, "Are you Jewish?" The adventure continues. Join me next time as I continue to explore Greekness and not Greekness. Soon enough, I will be interviewing Greeks who will be suspicious of my true intentions because I don't look Greek. Please, share your stories of awkward conversations about your ethnic background. Greek or not, I'd like to hear them. And Dios sas until next time. I'd like to thank Martha Giancolo and Kathleen McCoy for their input in editing this podcast. Martha is also my producer and works for Uzo and the occasional Tsureki. Greek Like Me is a Stealth Greek production.